subscriber-only podcast from Holiday Home Times. Holiday Home Times is a trusted guide for investors in hospitality and real estate. Since 2012, we have served over 500,000 families from across the globe. Today, our focus is on Canada, its economy, and opportunities to reside and invest in Canada through the Startup Visa program. To set the context, I would like to welcome the founder of Tripvillas, Mr. Roshan Dsilva, who will introduce and welcome our guest for today. Welcome, Roshan.
Thank you, Niri, for that warm welcome. And welcome to all our subscribers who are attending from across the globe. It gives me great pleasure today to welcome two friends who have agreed to share their knowledge and expertise with all our subscribers. Welcome, Stephen, and welcome, Aaron. I'll do quick introductions now. Our first guest is Mr. Stephen Green, who's one of the two senior partners at Green and Spiegel. He has been practicing immigration law for more than 30 years and has been identified as a leading practitioner in the industry. Stephen's clients range from huge multinational corporations to startups and entrepreneurial clients from across various industries. Our second guest is Mr. Aaron Sari, who's the Senior Business Development Manager at Green and Spiegel LLP in Toronto. He has immense knowledge and experience in banking services and the business immigration route for Canada, and uses this knowledge to help clients find the best options for immigrating to Canada. Welcome, Aaron and Stephen. I think you're both together. Yeah. Stephen, I think you have some slides. So what I thought we could do is we could, let you take us through the presentation, and then maybe I will come in towards the end and pose a few questions. I'd like to remind our viewers that they can put in their comments on YouTube or Facebook, wherever they are viewing from. So Stephen, I'll leave the floor to you and come back later on once you're done for Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Roshan. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling you from Toronto, Canada. This morning, it is about 10 a.m. in Toronto and about 20 degrees Celsius and sunny. So we're having a beautiful weekend. Roshan, I want to thank you for inviting us to come and speak about Canada and the various ways in which business people, skilled workers, family can come to Canada. It's interesting to see what's going on in the United States with respect to their immigration policy and how it compares to that of Canada. Just last Friday, our government of Canada announced they wanted more immigrants to come to Canada, and they increased our numbers by over 100,000 families they want to invite for 2021. So our immigration policy is very welcoming, and we want high-skilled, innovative people to come to Canada. And my law firm is the largest immigration law firm in all of Canada. And Aaron and I travel around the world helping various people find the proper way in which they can get into Canada and open up their businesses and really enter the business environment of Canada. And what we want to talk today about is a program called the Startup Visa. And what that is that the Canadian government about 7 years ago wanted to make Canada really a target for innovative businesses. And they looked at places like India, they looked at places like Silicon Valley, Israel, and they saw what each of those places are doing in order to encourage people to come with their innovative businesses, innovative ideas, and they created this Startup Visa program. And the purpose of it really is to bring innovation to Canada, to create jobs for Canadians and immigrants that live here, and provide the startup with an ability to expand on a global scale. So they would establish themselves inside of Canada and then be able to target the North American market, meaning that of the United States and that of Mexico. So it's a wonderful program for people that have cool, innovative ideas. But the government was really smart, I think, when they created this program, because they recognize that governments are slow with respect to innovation. And they wanted to sort of look to other organizations to help them decide whether or not your idea that you want to bring to Canada is innovative. So they went ahead and they designated certain organizations that will examine what your innovative idea is. And if one of those designated organizations think your idea is cool, innovative, will create jobs, then you and your family can apply for immigration to Canada and bring your business to Canada. And the designated organizations that make that decision on behalf of the Canadian government, they're divided into three areas. One is called venture capital funds, two, angel investor groups, and three, business incubators. And basically what these three designated organizations do is they examine your idea, and if they like it, they go ahead and they support you in coming to Canada. But the government said, well, we want to make sure that if one of these three organizations thinks your idea is cool, that they too will put money into your cool startup. So if you go to a venture capital fund and they think your idea is great, the venture capital fund must put $200,000 into your idea. Or if the angel investor groups think your idea is great, they have to put in $75,000. And the business incubators, they're lucky. They don't have to put money into your idea, but they have to provide you with support in their own incubator to, sorry for the dogs, welcome to working at home. They have to go ahead and put their incubator at your access where you can come and work with them. So we generally like to work with angel investor groups because it's less expensive for the angel investor to put money into your cool idea, and therefore that's who we work with. But they also require you to, give them a little bit of your cool idea. So they're looking at, getting about 10% of your cool startup idea. And once everyone sort of comes to an agreement as to whether or not your idea is cool, what is the responsibilities of everyone, then they will go ahead and provide you with the supporting documentation to apply for immigration to Canada. And there's certain eligibility requirements that you, as a person coming to start up, must have. First of all, they, want to look at your business that you're going to be starting inside of Canada. So your cool, innovative idea. You as an applicant must, of course, approach one of these designated organizations and make sure you get the letter of support from them. And you must also be able to speak English or French at a basic level. So if you meet all three of the criteria, that being you've got a cool idea, you've got a letter of support from your designated entity, and you speak English, then you are able to come to Canada, apply for immigration, and also get your business operational. Now, some of you may have heard of various other types of immigration programs inside of Canada. And we have some which are offered by the provinces in Canada, just like in the United States, where they are a country made up of various states, like you've got the state of California, you've got New York State. Well, we don't call our states places like that. We call them provinces. And in Canada, we have 10 provinces and some territories. And the provinces also have business programs to encourage people to come here. However, their programs that the provinces offer, they generally start with saying to the person that has the cool idea, why don't you come to Canada on a work permit, try out the business environment in Canada, invest your money, and if it goes well, then you can apply for immigration. We don't really like too many of those programs because it puts too much of a condition on the person that's coming, because they only get a temporary work permit to start. They have to live in certain areas where the province that's letting you come. So for example, if you thought that British Columbia was a great place, you have to set up in British Columbia and live there. And British Columbia is one of our provinces. And that's why we're not too keen on these provincial programs. And the Startup Visa program doesn't work that way, because the Startup Visa lets you live in any province you want, except Quebec, because they have their own little rules. But 90% of Canada, you can live anywhere you want. You get immigration, which is very different than provincial nominee programs. Provincial nominee programs, like I said, you get a work permit, and then you come and then you apply for the immigration. Under the Startup Visa program, you come as an immigrant with your whole family. So as you can see, it's a much more secure type of process, the Startup Visa. And we as the government also understands that around the world, many startups don't make it. And quite candidly, about 90% of all startups fail. But your visa is not conditional under the Startup Visa program on success. So if you came to Canada through the Startup Visa program, you started your business, and after 6 months, unfortunately, it wasn't successful, you don't lose your immigration. So as you can see, it's a pretty good program, because the government says, we're going to bring you fast because startups are innovative and we want innovation companies in Canada quickly. And we understand that if the business is going to fail, we want you to fail quickly and start a new one as fast as you can. So it's a very, fluid type of visa program, and many of our clients happen to like it. So let's talk about how the actual program works. And here's a great diagram of the process, and we're going to go through each step one by one to explain to you how it works. So to begin with, we have stage one. And stage one, which is the diagram where the circle is around, we have a founder. That's a person that has the cool business idea. And he or she wants to be paired up with other people that will be able to assist the founder in the way in which they're going to operate inside of Canada. So for example, let's say you had this really cool, neat idea called Uber, and you wanted to bring Uber to Canada, and you're the founder. You're the person that's really, had the sweat equity. You're the one that's developed the idea, but you don't have really any experience in finance. You don't have any experience perhaps in social media, logistics, things like that. So what we do is we work with other people, we call them the participants, who will be able to assist you in helping you create this business inside of Canada. So it's a group of up to 5 people or 5 families. That would be the founder and the other participants. And in our example, we go ahead and we have the founder and 3 participants. So after everyone's kind of met, meaning the founder and the other participants, and sometimes we help founders get together with participants because the founder may not have any experience in knowing who has financial, education, and it's going to help them do stuff. So once the group is formed, then the 3 participants and the founders go through a validation process. And basically, we call that stage 2. And that process involves the group of people, so the founder and the 3 participants, meeting online, trying to decide what's everyone's responsibilities, what's going to happen when you come to Canada, how they're going to go ahead and, tackle the Canadian market. So how would Uber be able to expand within Canada, that type of stuff. And that is what is, required for stage 2. And that takes about 2 to 3 months to prepare. And at the end of this preparation, you have what we call sort of a pitch deck, a business presentation that you as a founder and the participants must provide to the designated organization. So there's a date that's set up where the pitch is made to the designated organization. And usually it's about an hour to an hour and a half presentation about what you're going to do. So if it was Uber, you would go ahead and you would have a slide deck prepared. You would present what everyone's responsibilities will be once they come to Canada. And everyone knows what the participants are doing, what the founder is doing. And at the end of the presentation, you would receive a letter of support from the designated organization. And that letter of support is the sort of ticket to then apply for immigration. And, some of the people, the participants and the founders, are also required to put money into the startup as well. So the designated organization will discuss the terms of how much money is required. But it's important to understand that most of the money is protected until the participant and the founder receives their immigration to Canada. So the money is held in trust while everyone is waiting for their immigration. And with this letter of support, people then go ahead and apply for permanent residence. The process takes approximately 12 to 16 months to get immigration. And again, the reason that it may take 12 to 16 months is that some people's background have to be checked a little further. Everyone has to have a medical exam to make sure everybody is healthy. And then the visa is issued and people get their immigration to Canada. Once the immigration document is issued, then the money that is used for the purposes of the business will then be released, and that money is released out of escrow, and everyone gets their immigration and they are able to come to Canada. Once your immigration is issued, then you get involved in the last stage, which is really setting up the business in Canada. Everyone understands their role, so what the founder is responsible for, what the participant is responsible for, and the participant may only be responsible for, 2 calls a month. to the company saying, hi, I'm a participant. I was responsible for helping you with understanding finance. And they go through the financial, requirements of the company to make sure everyone is on track, understanding what's going on, things like that. And that's how the process would work. And then everyone gets involved in this sort of 12-month incubation where the startup designated organization will help you throughout the 12 months to understand the Canadian ecosystem. They'll provide you with, office space, coaching, introduce you to investors, where hopefully, you can raise more money for your startup once it becomes operational inside of Canada. It's also important to understand, included in the application for immigration is your husband and wife and all children under the age of 22. So all of your children get to come if they're under the age of 22. Everyone who gets their immigration to Canada must go through a criminal check because we have enough criminals in Canada. We don't need any more. So you get that completed. And also you must be medically healthy because in Canada, everyone who comes to Canada gets free medicine. So we have free medicine for everyone. That's why the Canadian government makes you go through a health check. And after living in Canada for 3 years, you are eligible to acquire a Canadian passport, and Canada permits you to have as many passports as you want. So move to Canada and you business, then you can get your Canadian passport and you can have both. And really, that is the startup visa program. It's one of the most favorite programs that the immigration department likes because they're able to stand up and tell the rest of Canada, we're bringing all these wonderful, innovative ideas to Canada. And that is our program. So I'm pretty much finished my discussion. Aaron, who works with me, who really works with a lot of the participants and the founders, putting this whole program together and assist in the preparation of your documentation and meeting with the startup organization, is going to make a few comments as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Aaron.
Hi, everyone. So I believe in the audience we have potential participants. We can call them mentors, and we have some potential founders. For the founders to be vetted, they have to reach out to us, and we'll get them actually vetted by the angel groups to get the green light to go into validation. And before they go into validation, what we do is we actually facilitate the potential participants / mentors to be meeting the founders in order to organize the group, to form the group of 4 or 5 people. As Stephen mentioned, the government allows up to 5 people to apply under one business proposal to apply for immigration. So that's how we actually match the participants with the founders. The participants are very well experienced, usually in finance or operations or marketing, business development, whatever it might be, a business owner from a country or an executive at a bank or an executive at one of the firms. So those mentors, participants are an added value to that founder to form the group so they can apply for immigration under the proposal to come to Canada and further establish their startup. If you take an example of, for example, a tech startup like Airbnb, for example, there could be probably a founder from India, Dubai, or wherever, Hong Kong, San Francisco, wherever it might be, wishing to come to Canada and apply for immigration under this program and come here. Now, the angel groups are investing exactly 75,000 or more. Most of the cases, it'll be 75,000, but since that may not be enough, what we do is the participants actually that are wishing to meet with the founder and form the group, they will each seek at least 10% equity from the founder, and by doing so, they're actually putting some capital into the startup that they're going to be part of. So the startup could potentially have $300,000 or more to start with, and there will be government grants, SHRED credits, tax credits as they go along with their process in Canada. Again, we have two types of clients: either mentors that are being participants that are being part of the startup, where they get introduced to a founder with a great startup in their back home country, let's say India or Dubai or Turkey, and they're wishing to come to Canada. All together, the participants and the founders, a team of 4 or 5 people, they then go through the validation, prepare properly, and apply for immigration. So as this point of contact, we will definitely help everyone to be matched to go through the validation, and at the same time apply for immigration and obtain their immigration if successful. I believe that's the information that we like to provide right now. I think that's fundamentally all of it. We're happy to share information on the cost and investment amounts.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you, Aaron. We have a few questions now, Aaron and Stephen. So, we don't need the slides now. So, what you can do is you can just turn them off, and we'll just take a few questions now. So, Aaron and Stephen, one of the questions is is on how much capital or how much investment is needed from the founder.
From the founder, actually, we like to get them to put as much capital as they can. But what they do is they actually when they give the equity out to their partners, the potential mentors.
Right.
The Canadian government wants everyone to have at least 10% equity when they're applying for immigration. So when they give out 10% to each mentor, and usually there are 3 mentors in a group, those mentors are putting at least $75,000 anyways, because the valuations are in Canada $750,000. So 10% of that valuation, each mentor is putting that. If the founder also puts money, that's great. But if they can't, we've seen many times that the founder brings the startup, brings the technology, and not put any capital.
Right. But also understand that we want to make sure that the founder, and we have an expression, we use all the time, has some, sweat in the game, wants something in the game, because we don't want a situation where a founder doesn't have any money in and suddenly they change their mind. So we want the founder to put some in, and that's, it's part of the negotiation between the founder and the participants about what the founder puts in. But it's important the founder will be asked to put money in because we want them to have some sweat in the game.
Oh, absolutely. Stephen, the next question comes from Mithul Bid. And, this is a question from, which I think will be common from multiple entrepreneurs.
Sure.
As to whether the startup has to be a new company, or can an existing company also apply, because the founders may have businesses that are already in existence in India or in the Middle East. Sure. Or in the Bay Area, etc.
So what happens is this: really, it's a whole sphere of at what stage the business is at. Sometimes we have people that come and they just have an idea up here, and they go ahead and they work with the mentors and they prepare a pitch deck and stuff like that. So that's one group. Then we have another group that have been maybe operational for 2-3 years, and they want to open up a branch inside of Canada with their cool, innovative idea. Like Uber would be a great example. I've been at Uber in India for many, for 2-3 years. Now they want to open up Uber Canada. And again, there's, it's all kinds of negotiations that people ask about with respect, does the IP have to be totally transferred to Canada? The answer is no. There can be a licensing agreement between the new Canadian company, and you don't have to transfer it. So it really is, what each situation is, we look at and we say, it's an early startup. Is it a late startup? Is it, it's second stage, they're looking for more money, that kind of thing. So absolutely, it's a whole sphere of where the business is at.
Right. The other question, Stephen, I think, and this is again a common question, is that, what do they budget for in terms of time? Because, every startup's, in a hurry to execute on their plan,
Sure. So what happens is this. In the example we gave, talk about, you've got the founder, you've got participants that get together, then there's a validation process for 3-4 months. Then you make your, once you finish your validation, you make your pitch to the designated organization, and then they give you the letter of support. Once that letter of support is issued, you are able to get a work permit to come right away to start your company while you're waiting those 12 to 16 months for your immigration. So you see, it's a pretty fast process. You could be in Canada after you actually start the process within about 4 months.
Oh, that's not bad. So they can come in on 4 months on a work permit, and then they can wait for their immigration status to come through.
And, but we always caution our clients by saying, okay, you come in on a work permit. I'm concerned that, everyone has to have medicals. Everyone has to have police checks. I want to make sure that you understand that by coming in on a work permit, you're not an immigrant yet. So if something changes, it could affect the process. So we're not a big fan of letting people come on work permits to start, but if you understand the risks involved and you're willing to do that, then we're happy to get that work permit.
Right. Now, Stephen, this other question is also, I think, a common question about, startups being high risk. So what happens if the startup fails and, you've not yet gotten your Canadian passport till that time? So then what happens,
Okay, so this, if once you come to Canada, you get your immigration, you've started, after 4 months your business fails, the government doesn't care. Your immigration is not conditional on the success of your startup because they know that 90% of them fail. What they're really looking for is innovative, cool people that if they fail, they start again and they keep going. And that's what we're looking for. And that's what this program is set up for. So it's not conditional on the success of your business.
Right. Stephen, I want to change tracks a little bit. Can you give us a sense about, how vibrant the startup ecosystem is in Canada? I mean, are there lots of innovative companies, and things like that?
Let me sort of explain to you, as I started with at the beginning, I said the Canadian government looked around and they saw what was going around the world and they wanted to compete internationally from an ecosystem in innovation. And I can tell you, for example, Toronto is the #1 place in the world now for artificial intelligence apps. We created more jobs in Toronto than they did in Silicon Valley, in Boston, in the whole ecosystem of IT. So it is very, very vibrant. It's really interesting. I'm sure everyone's waiting to see what's going to happen with the US election and things like that. And over the past 4 years, though, the immigration policy of the United States has changed significantly. It's not a very welcoming policy for now. And what's happened is that a lot of the IT companies, innovative companies, artificial intelligence companies have stated, you know what? We're in the United States working. We have so many temporary workers that are brilliant from places like India, China, Russia, Iran, stuff like that. But they're not able to get their visas renewed. And they saw what Canada was doing with respect to facilitating IT workers and high-skilled workers coming to Canada. So many of them have now opened up offices using this program because they know that really the most important aspect in a startup is your talent. And Toronto and in Vancouver, the amount of talent that's available is unbelievable. So these companies are moving up here. They're bringing their workers with them. Canada is opening its arms to these companies and workers because they know that we aren't producing too much coal anymore. And, innovation is the way to go.
Stephen, everyone's, especially in India, etc., everyone's heard of Toronto. But, there are multiple cities. And so can you maybe give us a flavor of how Toronto is different from Montreal and Vancouver?
Yeah, so Toronto really is the financial center of Canada. It's the wealthiest city in all of Canada. It has, the most universities in all of Canada. But Vancouver is on the coast. People prefer the temperatures a little warmer there. That they get a little more rain than Toronto gets. But again, the Pacific Coast is a lot more transient people because you have a lot of people coming from China, the Asia area, because it's sort of closer along the Pacific. So a lot of people come in and leave and stuff like that. But all our provinces, all our cities work together. You open a company in Toronto, you can certainly do business in Vancouver, and you can do business in Calgary, all over. And each government has various incentives for businesses to establish. The government for research and development. So if I spend a certain amount of money in developing my software, I can get a tax credit. And things like that. You work with universities. Universities have all kinds of incubators that they're putting all these brilliant students in and businesses in. And again, from a family perspective, it's a wonderful country. We've been rated like the #1 country in the world to live in, from a safety perspective, from a health perspective, and from just a way of life. Yes, it's important to work and be successful at work, but also family is really important. And I think a lot of us have recognized how important family is with respect to COVID, where we've had time to spend with our family. And I think everyone's mind has kind of, expanded that family is important as your business. So it'll be interesting to see how countries adapt abroad, where you may be in a place where you've got a lot of pollution, a lot of security issues, and you're saying, you know what, okay, maybe I can't make as much money in one country, but at least I can enjoy my family, and that's worth a lot to me. So it's a great place here.
Absolutely, Stephen. I've got a question here, which goes back to the startup visa program. Obviously, a lot of people attending are from India, which has a large pool of technical talent. So the question is whether you can have the headquarters in Canada and you can have an India subsidiary where you can have the programmers and the technical talent sitting in India, and would that qualify still?
Yes, absolutely, no problem. We're not saying to people that are coming here, close down your company in India, close down your company in Russia. We're saying expand your footprint. So have an office in Canada, have an office in India, and hopefully the two of them will work together. And then you'll have other offices across Canada, other businesses that will join you. That's how the process works. So it's really a concept of expanding your business footprint and really, making it a bilateral relationship between the two. And I can tell you that, the Canadian High Commission in India very much reaches out to so many Indian tech companies and all kinds of companies. Actually, this week, the Canadian High Commission, in conjunction with NASSCOM, which is the national lobbying group for IT companies, put on a program all week about how important India is to Canada, and the relationship between the two countries and the business flow between the two countries, how important it is. And, we welcome so many people and so many companies from the diaspora of India to come back to Canada.
Right. Stephen, you touched upon this, with the last few years, the US has been very challenging for knowledge workers, for companies in the US to retain them and to provide those knowledge workers with a path to a permanency, where to a path where they can feel at ease that that they can live there permanently. And so Canada, I think, has really benefited from that. How easy is it to be based in Canada and then address the US market and sell to customers in the United States?
It's important to understand that we're an hour flight from New York City, an hour flight from Boston. So it's very accessible. Certainly you would go down under, a business visa to do business down there. If you open up a subsidiary in the United States, you can get an L1, which is an intercompany transfer to the United States. And something very interesting, you may have read that Canada entered into a free trade agreement with my dogs again. Canada entered into a free trade agreement with the United States. And it's interesting that if you are a Canadian or acquire your Canadian citizenship, it's much easier for you to enter the United States. And there's an agreement where if you are a Canadian company, you can establish under a treaty trader visa a company in the United States. And you know, the flow, if you work for 1 year in Canada, you can transfer to the United States. So there's all kinds of facilitation available through the free trade agreement. And that's why also a lot of companies say, you know what, I'm going to set up my company. I'm going to bring my workers from abroad to Canada on a work permit. There is a pathway for immigration after working in Canada for a year or two. Then you get your immigration, then you get your Canadian passport, and it really opens up the whole world in many respects because Canada has way more agreements than the United States as far as working. I mean, we have an agreement, Canada has an agreement with most of Europe called CETA, which permits me as a Canadian to go and work through Europe. So again, it gives you this great opportunity to create your footprint in Canada and then expand not only in North America, but really to, you know, the rest of the world. Asia, we have an agreement with so many Asian countries, you know, the Trans-Pacific Agreement. It's amazing what our passport gives us from a work perspective.
Right. No, absolutely, Stephen. In fact, one of the most high-profile startups in India called Paytm, they have very successfully used the Canadian setup as a way to retain talent. You know, so because they recognize that, you know, a lot of their highly qualified employees wanted to migrate to Canada, and so they said, you know, hey, we're going to set up an innovation center in Toronto, and you know, you can transfer to that, get your work permit, and continue to work for Paytm while you're there. You know.
Yeah, I understand Paytm is doing quite well here. And it's interesting to note, too, that if you set up your company and you want to bring workers to Canada, your spouse is permitted to come with you and your spouse gets an open work permit. Your children also get to go to school for free and you also get free medicine. So Roshan, if you had a startup in Canada and you wanted to invite Stephen Green, who lives in India, to come and work for you, I could bring my wife who can get a work permit, do whatever she wants. My children can go to school for free. Within 90 days, my wife and I both have free medicine. So it's a great program. And then if I work for Roshan for a year or two, I'm able to get my immigration for my whole family and eventually my Canadian passport. And I can then sponsor my parents, my grandparents. So it's a pretty good open policy. And it's really interesting. You know, we're seeing now in the United States where you've really got immigrating with respect. In Canada, we have three main political parties. We have the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, and the New Democratic Party. And all three of our major political parties support immigration. And it's interesting, the opposition to the Liberal Party, which is in power in Canada, came out to say, you know what, Liberals, you came and you said 100,000 more people next year, but you know what, we think it should be more. You see, so it's very much a very pro immigration concept. And I guess one of the most interesting things about Canada is that our prime minister is Justin Trudeau. His father was Pierre Trudeau, who was also our prime minister in the 70s. And Mr. Trudeau, the father, introduced a policy called multiculturalism, where he said that we want immigration to Canada, but we don't want people to give up their culture. We want people that come from all different parts of the world to teach us about their culture. So when you go to the United States, you come in a pot, they mix you up, and out comes an American. We don't believe in that. If you come from Mexico to Canada, we want you to teach us about your Mexican culture. You come from Italy, teach us about your Italian culture, your Indian culture, and we all get along and learn from each other. Today, 52% that are in Toronto were not born in Toronto. So you can see how powerful the immigrant population is in Canada.
Right. Great, Stephen. I'm just inviting everyone who would like to get in touch with Green and Spiegel, maybe to have a more detailed chat, to maybe put down their email address or phone number in the comments so that, we can collate them and have them sent to Aaron so that, they can be assisted in the future.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you, Aaron and Stephen, for taking the time to spend with all the viewers and and share with them a good glimpse of Canada. We've got a small video here which will also tell people about about Canada quickly, and then run a small promo. Thank you everyone, and thank you for watching. Aaron, Stephen, we will end now with a small video here.
Great. Thank you so much, Roshan, and have a great evening.
And Roshan, one more thing.
Yeah.
Do share the presentation with all the attendees. Our contact details are on the presentation. And I guess Holiday Homes, Times, and Green and Spiegel will take care of the interested parties.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.